All right, welcome to class number 2 of how to build your perfect agency elephant account. We're going to be going over drips today. The syllabus should be located in the comments below whenever I figure out how to add attachments to comments in YouTube channels. So keep an eye out for that. I'll put a link down there if I'm not able to attach the document itself. But we are going over how to build your perfect agency elephant account, class number 2, focusing on drips. Okay, so first, let's start with what a drip is. From our last call, a drip is a planned series of outbound communication. All of it is planned. It can feel personal or it can feel impersonal, and it can feel like an automated text. There is use case for either one. There are certain pieces you want to get information out to people, but you don't need to have a conversation about it. For example, hey, your claim's been filed. You should be hearing from your claim rep within the next 24 to 48 hours. If you haven't heard from them, those are business hours. If you haven't heard from them, please reach out to me. You don't need it to sound personal. You just need to get information out, and you don't need to have a conversation. So there's use case for either one. I like most things being personal, but there's a use case for things being impersonal, like flights. When you land, what gate you're flying out of. It's not supposed to be personal. They don't want you to frickin' text back. They just need to get you information, right? So that is how we're going to be handling drips, depending upon the use case and depending upon what type of drip we're building out. I am going to be doing a renewal drip for you guys today to use an example of how this should work, tying together emails, text messages, and ringless voicemails into one drip so that it's working correctly, so that we know the process, and I'm going to go through that now. The first thing to understand about drips is drips are triggered by adding people to specific groups. All drips are triggered by adding people to the group the drip is assigned to, okay? Groups do not have to trigger automation. Groups can be used just for sorting, but if you have a group tied to a specific drip, it will trigger it, period. Always. Every drip will be triggered if you put them in that group to trigger it. You can have, and if you notice, we have maybe 24 different groups here that are attached to drips, but there's probably 48 groups in the account in total. Not all groups have to trigger drips, but for the sake of building a drip out, if you want to trigger a drip, you have to have a group attached to that drip, okay? So when you build out a drip, it's very simple. Just like our last call that I went over, there's two places to build drips. There is the tools section, which you should be using for all of your agency's communications, and there's the campaign section. A lot of people say, hey, I want to build a campaign. Well, it makes sense because this is called campaign, and they build a campaign here. This is not where you should be building your agency's drips or campaigns, because they all use separate phone numbers. They're for specific marketing purposes. They are not for building your agency's drips, okay? So to build a drip for your agency, that has to be done in tools, okay? Tools are where all your drips are located: SMS, email, ringless voicemail. The process to build them is pretty simple. I'm going to go through each of these really quick and go through the constraints, what all the verbiage means, and how to use it correctly. I am going to start with a ringless voicemail. The reason why is because I am doing a renewal drip campaign. That's going to be our example for the day, okay? With a renewal strategy, I want to send an email and a text message at the same time immediately when I add somebody into that group, okay? The reason why is because the email is going to have a form attached to it. It's going to be trying to grab some information from them so that they can renew correctly, and I can have opportunity from that renewal, not just letting them know their policy is renewing, right? I want to round the account out. I want to make sure I'm doing my due diligence on the account, and I want to hit them before the renewal actually processes so that I don't have to have a conversation about rate. Don't want to have a conversation about rate on renewals. I want to have a conversation about their account in general. If you handle the renewal correctly, typically you might be able to add discounts, which, guess what, helps when that policy renews. The rate isn't going to be as high because you added a discount prior to the renewal, right? Just a strategy I like to use. So I'm going to build out a renewal drip for you right now. When you're building out these drips, first you need to be in the correct column. I'm building out a ringless voicemail drip first, okay? All your drips are going to be tied together based upon the consistent group, and I'm going to use the same name as well to make it really easy so that it's not confusing, okay? So the first thing on a renewal drip that I want to do is build out a RVM. Over here on the right side of the page, this little plus button, that's how you add new drips. It's consistent on each of these pages. This is going to be a renewal processed. And if I knew how to spell, it would probably help. Renewal processed. Voicemails from USA, future follow-ups. This means, the future follow-ups rule means if this person responds to this drip, it will shut off the future drips going out, okay? If they respond, it shuts it off. Renewal drip, I'm probably not going to have that much activity on it or that many steps to the drip. I'm going to leave it as no. I do not want to remind them if they responded, because if they responded, great, Matt, I filled out the form. I don't want to send them another reminder that says, hey, make sure you fill out that form, right? I want it to shut off. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this next feature I'm going to go over. Let me grab a phone number for this account really quick so that I can actually build this out. Let's go to phones. Let's unlock this. Let's go back to tools so I actually can build this out for you guys. Gonna make me buy a new number, aren't you? Or register that number. Let's see what they're gonna make me do. Before I buy one, let's just see if I can use this one. Let's just buy a new number if they're going to make me. And we haven't used this account in a long time, so let's buy a new number. So I'm going to use my area code. I'm going to grab a new number. I always like to name my numbers so I know what they are, because if I don't, I come over here and I don't really know what it is. And let's switch accounts here because this workflow account isn't set up and I do not want to waste all of our time setting this up. So give me one sec. Okay, perfect. So this one has a phone number attached to it. So I'm going to build it out here. All right. So back under in tools, under RVM drips, I'm going to hit the add new drip here. And this is where I'm going to title it renewal processed. Future follow-ups, we went over that rule. Next rule is repeat sequence. This is a new feature we added recently. Repeat sequence means that I can repeat this drip on a specific time period for forever, similar to an event reminder, but not attached to a date, okay? It's attached to when they entered the drip. So if I want the renewal drip to trigger every year without an event reminder, I'm going to hit yes, because I do want it to trigger every year. Now, this wait feature is important. The clock doesn't start until after the drip is over. My ringless voicemail I leave, I'm probably going to do 2 ringless voicemails. I'm going to do one immediately on day 0, and I'm going to do one 3 days later. So I'm simply going to say, hey, I need a calculator here, and it's going to say 365 minus 3 is how many days? 362. So after the last drip is over, I'm going to wait 362 days and restart the drip over again, right? Total of 365 days. Leap years, we're just going to disregard it. One day isn't going to make a huge difference on a renewal processing. Anyways, next thing I need to do is pick the group. Well, we don't have a renewal processed group, as you can see. I'm going to hit the add group button. Great, the group was added, but guess what I have to do now? I have to pick the group that I just added, okay? I pick the group that's going to trigger the drip. I name it. I tell it what I want to do from the settings section, and now I pick my throttle rate. For renewal processes, I want to have a little bit higher of a throttle rate to make sure those things go out immediately, no matter how many people I add into them. So you can always do a higher throttle on this. You're going to control this as well. I also don't want to have drips fire off anytime before 9 a.m. and anytime after 6 p.m. These are my constraints from a time period, okay? Understand this. If you import or change somebody's account and you add them to this drip it will disregard the constraints and send it immediately. So if I import a list of renewals at 10 p.m. at night, guess who's getting an RVM at 10 p.m. at night? The customer, because it will always send that immediate text message immediately when you import that person in or you copy them into the group or pipeline. So that will always happen. I am not managing the chat. So if you guys are posting questions in the chat, please know I am not managing it. We will do a brief Q&A after this. I'm not sure who is on the call that can answer the questions because Brian is in Florida today. So please hold those for me to answer till after. The next thing I'm going to do is my role, okay? The role is if you have multiple team members in the account or you want to assign this to a specific team member. If you're not using team members, don't worry about it. If you are using team members, I typically want to have this coming from the agency and not from a specific person because people can change, processes change. I want this coming from the agency. Hey, this is the Brian Blair agency. We just sent you an important, email. It can be from anybody, right? I'm going to hit submit. My settings are done. The next thing I have to do is I have to actually add my ringless voicemails. So I'm going to start with the first ringless voicemail. In this section, the interval is what controls when that drip goes out. So if I use the term day 0, that means immediately. Instant or same day messages will be skipped when the lead is after time constraints. This has to be removed because we just updated our feature so that it sends instantly. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this. Have our dev team remove that note tonight. Day 0 will trigger immediately. You do not need to upload a file or use a template for this. You can simply record now. Okay, very simple, very straightforward. You hit the record button and say, hey, this is Matt over at the Hahn Insurance Agency. We just sent you an important email regarding your insurance renewal for your policy. Please go check it out. There's a couple pieces of pending info that we need to process that renewal. Please respond via email when that's been done. And we will touch base on the renewal when it processes. The reason behind that strategy is hitting them before it processes is because I don't want to have a conversation about rate, right? Don't want to talk rate. We're processing the renewal and we need pieces done prior to the renewal, okay? So if I am over in our renewal form strategy, and I'm going to grab one of our renewal forms that we beta tested. If I'm using this renewal form strategy, the purpose of it is to know what changed in the household, what their income is, their equity in their home, and where their life insurance is, and if they have kids, okay? The reason for this is, as insurance agents, we should know that if you're in a liability lawsuit from something that happened in an auto accident, your wages can be garnished. The reason I ask for income is because I want to know what they're making per year. I want to multiply that by the wage garnishment in my state and say we can garnish $30,000 a year for up to 10 years to satisfy a lawsuit. I know their liability limits at $120,000 need to be at least at $300,000, $300,000 of coverage, right? Simple math to understand wage garnishment. This is how you write umbrella policies. Touchy-feely stories, emotional stories should always be based upon facts, okay? Not facts about other situations, facts about their situation. Stories work, emotions work, but it needs to be based upon their numbers. That's the reason for this form, okay? Next, if they have equity in their home, I am going to add in the equity to the total limit. They have $150,000 in equity. I know their liability limit should be $450,000. Now this is an easy umbrella conversation, right? The purpose of this form is to trigger rounding out accounts, adding discounts, dropping rates, and adding value, right? I don't like to use the term household penetration very often, but this is what it's for, okay? So now that I recorded my first voicemail that notifies them of an email I just sent that's important, I'm going to hit submit, and I just created my instant voicemail. The next reminder I want to send is 3 days later, like I mentioned. If they haven't filled out that form or I haven't heard from them, I want to send them a voicemail at 3:15 in the afternoon. And I'm going to record that voicemail to say, hey, it's Matt again. Just want to send you another reminder. We sent you a second email. Your renewal is processing. We need a couple pieces of info to process the renewal. Please jump on your email and fill that out. If you've already filled it out, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I will go take another look. Please disregard if you've already filled it out. Right? I'm going to leave a day 3 email. Okay. Once that file is uploaded in the system, I hit submit and now I've got my ringless voicemails, okay? It's gonna repeat every 362 days. I am going to take this screenshot so that we know what our constraints are for the next video, okay? Or for the next process. The next thing I'm gonna do is go back into tools, and my ringless voicemail told them I sent them an email. So guess what I have to do now? Create the email. I always like to make templates for these kinds of things because they look really, really good, and it's better than just a regular email, okay? So to create a template is very simple. You come into the dropdown, you hit email templates. To the right side of the page, you hit the plus button, just like everything else, and you have your basic layouts. I always like to start scratch because that's just me, so we're gonna start scratch. This is our template builder, okay? This is how you build out templates. Blank slate, drag blocks here. I want a logo for my agency. Well, what's my logo? Well, I'm gonna change the image now, and I'm going to click here to pick my logo, right? It should be pretty straightforward. I'm gonna use our very, very fun Matt and Brian logo here. If it was the right file, I hit upload. If you're not using a JPEG or a PNG and you're using something else, it won't upload. This is a very large file, so hopefully it uploads very quickly. Once that's done, the logo will appear here. If you didn't use the wrong image or the wrong file and you're using something else, that logo will appear here. Here's how you change the width. Here's how you make it full screen, always on whatever device you're on. And I really wish that I didn't hit trash, and I really wish I hit the other button that I was trying to hit. So let's go back in here and do that again. Here's our logo. I'm going to upload it and wait for it to upload this time. Now we have our image. I'm going to do full screen always. I'm going to pick my size of that image, right? I'm going to drag this little cursor around. Once you've done all that, if you're like, hey, I need to update that, you can simply click on it, okay? This is all clickable. You can update all of these things as you want. You can change all these sizing. You can hold it to full screen. Up at the top here is what I was trying to click. This is your mobile view. This is your tablet view. This is your desktop view to show you what's going on. Then I want to add my text, right? In here, I'm going to say, if you click here, you're thinking, hey, I can type here. No, you actually have to type here. So you'd say, hey, and you can still use tokens here. If you have tokens you want to use, like first name, right? Hey, first name. Just a reminder, your insurance policy is processing for renewal. We need a couple pieces of info to process the account. Please fill out this quick form. Shouldn't take more than 2 minutes. We will give you a call after this has processed from your submission. And it's going to say the Matt Hahn agency, right? Now I need to come over to my job form and I need to copy this link and I need to paste this into my template here. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. Please fill this out. Right, pretty straightforward. I need to link this, put my URL here, don't care about the title. Now my form's all up here and I'm going to hit save. Well, what is this template? This is the renewal processing email, right? What's the subject line? I'm going to say, hey, your insurance policy is pending renewal, action required, right? I typically like to do the action required up at the beginning because I want to put urgency, action required, insurance policy pending renewal. We need a few pieces of info. And I'm going to hit save. Once that template's created, it's going to pop me back here. And now I'm going to build out the drip. Okay. Click the drip section, click the add section, and guess what we're going to do? Call it the exact same thing we called the other one. Renewal processed. Future follow-ups still is a no. Repeat sequence, absolutely. Same thing, 362 days. Is that what we had over here? Yep, 362 days. It's going to repeat itself. From name, I'm going to put Hahn Insurance. And if I had an email connected, it would all work. I'm going to come over here and use what group? The renewal processed group, the same group the RVM is attached to, and hit submit. Now let me connect an email here really quick so that we actually have something to connect. I'm going to show you how simple this is. I'm going to come over to emails. I'm going to come over to Outlook, right? Or I'm going to come over to G Suite, whichever one I want to use. And let's see if our G Suite works, because I just was updating that yesterday to make sure we can connect accounts. I'm going to connect it to this email, hit allow. Great, I'm connected. I'm going to come over to tools, drips. We're going to do the same thing over again. Renewal processed. Future follow-ups, no. Repeat, yes. 362 days. From email, from name. What's my from name? Well, this is going to be Han Insurance. What's the group? Renewal processed. Same group, right? My throttle was 30 minutes, and I did over here a total of 400 people at 30 minutes. So I'm just going to do 200. Constraints. I don't care about constraints. This is email. I don't care about constraints. I'm going to hit submit. Now, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to do the same thing, day 0, because the RVM mentioned we sent them an email. Now, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to pick the template that I just created. If you have a lot of templates, simply type the name, renewal processing, it'll populate where you go. And here's my email. Hit submit, email's done. Next thing is I had a day 3 RVM that also sent an email at day 3. What time did I send it out? 3:15 in the afternoon. I'm going to pick the same email template because it's the same information. And then I'm going to hit submit. That simple, all tied to the same group, all titled the same thing, all connecting the timeframes to match what your expectation of the drip was. This is how you build out a drip campaign for anything. Same process, same steps, maybe different settings, maybe different groups, maybe different verbiage, but the same process to build out that entire drip sequence for the strategy. I am going to open up for Q&A real quick, and we can open up the floor for Q&A. Go ahead, shoot, guys.
So when we're setting up the times for those emails, you said 3:15. How does it know which time zone to send it from?
Great question. Your time zones in your account will determine what time zone you're sending from. So over in your settings page, you have over here, this is our basic information, right? This is our industry, title, country, etc. You also have a time zone located here in your basic phones.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Matt, can you go over what you were telling us? Because I get this confused. So when I drop in a list, is it going to immediately send it to them if it's outside of the constraints? Can you just go over that again?
Yep. This is something we changed recently for a few reasons. Anytime you have a day 0 drip in your system, anytime you have a day 0 drip set up in your system, anytime, if there's a day 0 step, this means it will send it out immediately, regardless of the constraints you have set up in your system. It disregards your constraints and sends it immediately because that's what you're wanting to do. The reason why we did that is for giveaways, people entering into things, online forms filled out that they wanted info on, really anything that somebody's opting into immediately. We want to make sure we're getting them the info that they requested immediately, even if it's after hours. So that means if you're sitting in your system and you have Matt Hahn in your system and you trigger a group after hours, what's going to happen if there's a day 0 message? They will immediately get that drip. You cannot and you should not, as best practices, import a list of people to trigger automation late in the evening to set it up for the next day unless you know what you're doing. And what I mean by that is if you are the type of person that needs to set up activity for the following day and you're doing it the evening or night before because that's your process, don't use a day 0 drip, use a day 1. day one at a specific time. Plan it out so that if you know you're coming in here and you're saying, hey, here's the deal. I want to use this aged lead drip campaign that I have here, and I want to do this after hours when I actually have time to do it. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to duplicate out that aged lead drip. And then I'm going to come in here and use the aged leads built for you drip campaign. I'm going to pick all my constraints, right? I'm going to pick all my time frames. I'm going to do all of that stuff.
Hey, we can't see your screen if you're
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Go back here. If you want to use this aged lead drip campaign and you are triggering it the night before because you want to set up activity for tomorrow, you have to change the constraints of the drip. So for example, this drip has a day 0, which is active as new lead is added. All you have to do is change these. So for example, come in here, copy the information that's on this page, close it, create a new drip, do it at day 1, and you're going to do this at, call it 10:15 in the morning. Here's your message. You're going to hit submit. All you're going to do is change the information and delete out those other drips that you just pasted. So if you are the type of person that wants to do this at night because you have time to do this, make sure the drip you are setting up doesn't start until the next day.
Thank you.
That is a good rule of thumb because I know a lot of us are night owls and we understand our insurance agencies are a dumpster fire from the moment we get in, pulling us in different direction, but we can't let that stop us from having opportunity. Just change your process. Do day 1. Don't do day 0.
So a drip that I'm currently trying to create is for like the, quote, not sold type thing, where we reach out to them, but if we're able to, at that same point, schedule the follow-up appointment for a future day, how do I have a drip work off? We remind them, certain drips from now because we quoted them, didn't sell them, but it also recognizes either through Calendly or on the Jot form itself that they picked a different day for us to call them back, that it works off of that X date to triggers for the future appointment that's set.
That would be a very long, in-depth Zapier build out.
Okay.
You would have to use pipelines to do that. So it removes groups and adds them to specific pipelines. You would have to build out a very involved Zap to do that. That is not an easy process because the drip shuts off when they respond. That is how Agency Elephant works. But if you're having them go somewhere else to create an action that removes them from this group, well, you've got to make sure it goes into a new pipeline that disconnects them from that group going forward, which is a great question for how pipelines work. If it was me and I'm doing a re-quoting drip campaign, I personally would do this under an event reminder campaign. That is personally how I would do it. The reason why, and I'll get into it briefly without going through an entire event reminder to explain why. The reason why is because I can say, after this event reminder fires off for a quotes not sold X date, I like to use expiration date for everything. I don't like to use 17 different date fields. The reason why is I can use expiration date for every single event reminder campaign, unless it's based upon when they filled out a form, then you have another date field. But I like to use expiration date for everything because it's based on group. If they are in the quotes not sold group or quotes missed group, and they have an expiration date, which is when we tried to quote them last, it will fire off that event reminder. The reason why I like to do this on an event reminder field is strictly because of this. If this event reminder fires off, I want to move them into my re-quoting pipeline, which changes groups, which has other follow-ups attached to it. And guess what I'm going to do when that pipeline is finished on the expiry rule? I'm going to make sure they go back into the group that is attached to the event reminder field to start that process all over again next year. This is what we're going to be leaning on in our next call, explaining all of this stuff, but event reminders are a great way to have funnels built so it recycles those people. Because if you're using a quotes not sold drip and you are using this repeat feature here, and you're having drips repeating after a certain period of time, if they go into a pipeline for any reason, guess what group they just got removed from, which has the repeat feature on it? This one.
Okay, so instead of leaning on that really long, complicated zap, I simplify it this way, and I can let AE manage the whole thing because it's adding or moving the groups. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
I personally like to do event reminders for almost everything. If I were to log into my account, everything that fires out is an event reminder now, because I can recycle all of that opportunity into hot prospects, requoted leads, missed bundles, and it hits my pipeline, and then it refunnels it if it doesn't close, and it does it again every year, or whenever I tell the event reminder to do it.
Okay.
But drips are built simply by tying the groups together, and we could always take a text message drip here as well that you could do for the renewal process. You can always fire off a text message as well as part of that renewal process using the same process renewal group, title it the same thing, just so it's easy for you guys. The group is the big key here. They can always add a text message to this sequence if I wanted to. This is one of the reasons why, as a new user, I always like to use a Google Sheet to build these out. This is one of my tips for new users who are not as familiar with the system as I am. I like to use a sheet to build out my drips, because I can say, this is the renewal process drip, right? And I want to do an RVM day 0. Here's what I want to say. I want to do an email day 0. And let me make this consistent for all you guys that are very particular. Email day 0. This is what I want it to say. I want to do a RVM day 3, right? This is what I want it to say. After this is over, if I'm doing this from an event reminder, I'm going to say, put in deal status, renewal processed. If I'm doing this from a event reminder, there's not going to be day 1, day 3, or anything. It's just day 0. What am I sending? Put it into renewal processed, deal status. This is what's going to happen when it goes into the deal status after the event reminder fires off. I'm going to have a drip on day 3, which does my RVM, right? This is how you use that pipeline feature. And then expire deal status after 30 days back into the original renewal process group, which is what triggered the event reminder. This is how I build everything out, especially as a new user. This is how I built it out for months, so I could have it, my whole process mapped out before I went into Agency Elephant to build it. So I knew exactly what I was building. If you are a new user and not familiar with the system as well as you'd like to be, use Excel spreadsheets to build everything out and see the flow of what you want, then go do it. Drips will not cycle into deal statuses as of now. We don't plan on doing that. It's not something we have in the plans, but it is something we can add in the future. We have a lot of other things that we're working on. Currently, one of the things we're working on is doing a huge overhaul on our pipeline setting page. We're doing a huge build out on this pipeline. Questions?
Hey, Matt, could you show me how to do an event reminder campaign? I want to do one for July 4th. I'm not sure if it's best to broadcast that out. Reminder campaign.
Taryn, great question. This is the drips call for the class. It is recorded for all drips. I can't get into building out event reminders because that is a very drawn out process. If you are wanting to build out event reminders, and we're not going to be doing that class probably for 2 weeks. Next class we're doing is pipelines. If you are wanting to build out a drip for event reminders, this video over here, event reminders haven't changed. Event reminders. Watch this video. It will show you all of the settings, all the constraints, everything. What may surprise you about our call we're doing now and the classes that we're doing now. We are literally duplicating exactly what we've done in all of these videos in a class setting. Everything that I've gone over on drips is actually the same thing that has gone over in the drips playlist. So if you want to build a drip or build an event reminder or build anything out that is we're not discussing on this call, the exact thing we go over is under these sections: drips, event reminder campaigns, pipelines. These are all build videos to show you how to build those. So we will get to the event reminders. It just can't be done on this call for sake of time and for the video recording, so that we have these classes recorded for everybody that wants to watch it back, so that everything is categorized for those people.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.
Absolutely, man. And Jennifer, Matthew, will you remind me / us about what we can and cannot change or modify BF drip or campaign? Yes, Jennifer, I can absolutely show you that. You cannot change constraints on drips that are already built out. You cannot come into a drip and you cannot say, hey, I want to run the auto no home drip. You cannot come in here and say, I want to change my constraints. Can't edit it. They're locked in. I want to change the time frame these goes out. Can't do it. You have to simply take this drip. If you're like, hey, I don't want to do a day 0, copy the info, create a new drip, pick your intervals, paste it, delete the old one. If you are going to be editing or changing any agency elephant drip, I always recommend to leave the current built for you one alone. This account is a mess because this is our Workflow Wednesday one. You can see groups aren't even attached here. You can always inactive the drip that you're going to duplicate. So we're going to duplicate the giveaway. I always recommend duplicating it and editing the one you duplicate and leaving this inactive, so that if you want to go back to the original, you always can.
Okay, so don't even change the text in the emails or the.
I personally wouldn't, because we can't re-put those back in your account. And we've had users that were like, hey, I edited the, built for you home no auto, the built for you age lead. It's not working. I want to go back to the original. We can't re-clone it. It's already been cloned.
Okay.
We can't pick just one thing to clone. When we clone an account, everything goes in.
Perfect. Thanks.
Absolutely. Next question is, I've been using drips to contact late pay customers. How do you handle when a customer calls you before you started the drip and say they'll pay closer than cancel a date? I don't want the day 0 drip. Perfect question. To cancel if somebody calls in and you have scheduled out a message or a drip that hasn't fired off, I'm going to show you 2 ways. One, if the drip hasn't fired off, just simply remove the group that they were attached to and the drip will not process. If you've scheduled a text message to this person and it hasn't fired off yet, simply come into the SMS section, hit view scheduled SMSs. And if you have a scheduled one, there will be a little X where you can cancel that scheduled message. That goes the same for emails as well. You can cancel those scheduled events. Calls, this is where ringless voicemails will be if you have ringless voicemails in here. Okay, somebody replies to an email, will it take them off the drip or only with text? If they respond to an email, it should stop that sequence from firing out. I would beta test that first, Kristen, because I have never beta tested that. Worst case scenario, they get a second email. If they filled out the stuff already, it's not a huge deal, but you can always check on that and beta test that yourself. It should remove it. But keep in mind, if somebody texts back, it's going to stop that initial texting thread, not the RVMs or emails. Whenever somebody responds, as a rule of thumb, if somebody responds to a message and I'm working on the account, I always like to remove them from the group just to be sure that I've done it correctly. And I always like to put people into a working prospect pipeline, or if it's a service, I have a working service pipeline so I know what I'm working on. That's what I always like to do. Questions about tags and groups. How can I see clients that have just a certain tag? Also, how can I see a list of tags that we have used? Great question, not necessarily about drips, but it's an easy enough answer. All of your tags are located under settings. You can view all the tags in your account or add tags. If you want to search an account or search all of your tags in your system, it's really straightforward. Use the search feature. Well, what am I searching? The tag contains home policy. Show me all my people tagged home policy. Right? Amber, great question. We can have your account set up today If we have all of the information in your account that is needed, if you've registered your phone number, you filled out the WUFU, you've picked a phone number and signed terms and conditions, as soon as all those things have been done, we send you an email actually on day one, letting you know that, hey, once you've done all those things, please email us to let us know you've done those. So if we haven't gotten that email, we haven't taken a look at your account to see if you've done them. Usually if we don't hear from the user for a few days, we check on them. Usually they've already always done it. They just didn't actually read the email to let us know that they finished their requirements. Okay, usually we check on those 2 days after to see if they've done it. If you have completed those, if you log into your account and you see a little flashing exclamation mark up here, you haven't registered your number, go click on it, follow the links. It takes 2 minutes. There's a video in your welcome email from Agency Elephant that shows you how to register that number if you haven't done it already. Questions about drips, build out processes, settings, question about drips.
Do you know off the top of your head what?
Hey Matt, I see that the DNC integration is gone. I work a lot of aged leads. What exactly do we need to do for that?
Great question, Peter. I will go through that really quick. One of the reasons and I'm going to mute you because there's some background noise there. One of the reasons we removed the DNC feature from Agency Elephant is because the do not call registration is for phone calls. People were not using the dialer for in a significant amount of usage to warrant us continuing to pay for the DNC registration. DNC is only for dialing and is not for texting. So if you're texting people, the registration scrubbing of that doesn't matter anyways, because you don't necessarily have consent to text those people for the most part. Age leads are very interesting. If you are running an age lead campaign via text message, general rule of thumb, those aged leads are people that have come into your agency through purchase vendor leads that gave you permission, or people you quoted that you've already talked to. And so you have their, expectation that you could talk to them again. If you are purchasing age leads from, say, the age lead store, or you're getting them from the other company out there called Cole X States, those are not people that have submitted anything that you can prove that warrants you to be able to text them. If you want to run the campaign, you absolutely can. We're not going to stop you from texting people that you throw in the system, but that is going to be on you because they didn't necessarily give you permission to text. So if it was me, I like to do different types of campaigns using ringless voicemails and other things. If you want to scrub that list, typically the age lead store, other companies say that they are scrubbed, but you can always go to the dnc.com and scrub your own lists. But there's no purpose of scrubbing a list if you're going to be sending text messages to them, because those two are like talking about the difference between a car and the similarities between a car and a boat. They're completely different. Does that make sense? Perfect. Any other questions about drips? Setup, settings, future follow-ups, any of those rules that we have questions of. Use cases for drips.
I know you said that the drips won't automatically put them in the different pipeline things, but I didn't quite understand. Can we set it so when they do respond to a drip, it removes them from a group, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the future follow-up rule. So if your future follow-up rule says no, it shuts it off. If the future follow-up rule says yes, it keeps it going. So if you're using an onboarding or a giveaway, or I like to have it set up so future follow-up rule is yes for an auto no home campaign. The reason why is typically people are always like, well, let me find my homeowner's deck page, whatever. Like, I've found that's very consistent. I want to keep sending notifications after that. Depends on your process. I always remove groups from people when they've responded just to be sure. For the most part, it just depends on you. Quote follow-up. This one is a yes. The reason why it's a yes is because how many times do you get messages that say, I haven't taken a look at the quote yet. Let me go take a look at it tonight and talk to my spouse about it. Well, I don't want to shut off the follow-ups that are scheduled for the next 18 days because they haven't given me a yes or no. I still need to follow up with them. So in some use cases, you use yes, and some you use no. It depends on the use case of that drip and your guys' processes. Any other questions with drips? As a general rule of thumb, I have a very simple strategy with drips. Very simple. If somebody responds to a drip that is yes, I always put that person into a pipeline so I know I'm working on them. If you have ran any type of significant list through a drip, you'll notice your page of inbound messages you get is overwhelming with how many no's and yeses and conversations you're having. Any conversations or yeses that I'm having, I always put into my prospect pipeline so that I know who I'm working. You can add a working status if you want. Doesn't have to be a prospect, just a working status. Every time somebody responds, I'm having a conversation, or anytime there's a yes, I want to put that person into that specific status. It is very straightforward to do that. You simply come over to your pipeline and pick whatever status it is that is your working status. And that way you know at a glance what is going on in my agency and whom I'm working.
So let me know if this one's too specific. I've been asking if anyone has more questions. So another one that I'm trying to figure out is for our follow-ups, like when people haven't made their payment or, hey, check with their policy. I want to set up the drip to continue to reach out to them. But if I can set it up in our CRM or remove them from pending to active, if setting them to active, if that can somehow trigger a zap that could go in and remove that person from the group, is that possible?
It just depends on what your triggers are on Zapier. What are your trigger capabilities and what's your trigger points in Zapier? If there's a trigger point in your system that says, if my CRM changes to active, that's a triggering point. If there's not a triggering point for that, then no, we can't grab anything that's not coming from a trigger. So there has to be a triggering point on your Zap. So if that, whatever system you're using for that trigger, it has to be a triggering event. It has to send the data from that CRM. If it can send data on any triggering point, you can do what you want in your system through a Zap.
Okay.
It just depends on, is it a triggering point? So if it's not a triggering point, then it can't go anywhere. Agency Elephant can take and do, especially just FYI, we are in the middle of beta testing our new Agency Elephant Zap. It's going to have a lot more functions and features. Do not use it yet because it is not ready. We are still tweaking a few changes in it, but there's a new Agency Elephant Zap that we have built and created that has a whole bunch of different triggering events that happen within Agency Elephant, as well as there's a whole bunch of different outputs you can make or put in points into Agency Elephant as well. So it's going to have tags, it's going to have deal statuses, it's going to have search features, it's going to create or update a lead, all of those things. So there is going to be more functions within the Zap, but it is not ready. So please do not use it yet because it may not work consistently for you. So if you're looking here, this is our new Agency Elephant Zap. It has the ability to do a whole bunch of different features, from tagging, removing, updating when something has happened in Agency Elephant to send it to someone else. Or if you're using us as the endpoint, you're sending information to us. Well, what happens? Well, it copies or removes a lead, it adds or removes a tag, it creates a lead, it puts it into a new deal status, or it searches for a lead, information, etc. Again, that Zap is not complete. So if you use it, you will probably have errors. One of the things we're trying to fix is bulk adding and bulk Zaps to make sure that those all work correctly. The Zap in and of itself is working great for a one-on-one usage. But one of the things that we wanted to change, because it makes sense to change, is if I have people entering it, or if I'm sending people out, or I'm trying to create tags and whatnot, I want to be able to do that in bulk from my lead manager. So I can come in and say, all of these people, if I add the group, these 17 things happen. But this is the area that we're updating right now. So hopefully that will be done in the next few weeks. We've been working on it for a couple months now. Any other drip specific questions? No, we are good. Awesome. I will take this recording. I will post it into our Agency Elephant YouTube channel. If you are not subscribed to the Agency Elephant YouTube channel, I recommend you do that. We do have a new series in here, a new playlist called Building the Perfect Agency Elephant Account. This is class 1. Class 2 will be in here in the next few days, so you can watch that on playback. Our next video we're going to do is going over pipelines, and we're going to talk about all things pipelines, how to get things firing into the pipeline correctly. It should be your hub in your agency that refunnels all of your prospects and opportunities, and so we will go over that. We'll probably be nearing in a little bit of event reminder campaign talks, and then we'll be doing an event reminder campaign build out call after that to make sure we've done that section. Then we'll be going over the next thing that we decide to go over. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. As always, the Facebook group is the best place to go for asking questions and strategies and all these things. We haven't decided, Mike, if we are going to be doing a Zapier call yet. We probably will after our Zap is built, but the problem is, and the concern is rather about doing a Zapier call, is it can go a million different ways. We'll probably pick one starting point and one end point, because you should be able to do anything and everything by using one thing as an example. You just change the end point or starting point, whatever you're trying to do, but we'll go over all of those things. But it probably won't be something where we're connected, because you can duplicate the process for anything as long as if there is a triggering point.
Do you know if tech support, like the red chat box, will ever be able to help with Zap or no?
No, chat support is helping with your Agency Elephant account. We cannot train on Zapier.
Okay.
We can provide help with your account and what our Zap can do into Agency Elephant, but we can't have our Zap working on something that is Zapier related. If it's another company related issue with Zapier, it's very straightforward. It doesn't have to be as complicated as people make it. If there is a triggering point for something, you can send data. If there's not a triggering point, the conversation is pretty much dead at that point, because if you can't trigger from changing an account from inactive to active in your CRM, then there's nothing we can do.
Okay.
Any other drip questions? Last call. All right, guys, we appreciate your time today, or I do, because Brian is on vacation. Have a great rest of your afternoon. I will post this recording in the YouTube channel.